Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales, a place where you find stories and fanfictions written and read to you by your host, me, Tai Tiger. Today we're diving back into Power Rangers Magnificent Megaforce in the Universe 35, where the Super Megaforce Rangers failed in their quest to stop the Armada. The Armada now rules over Earth 50 years later with an iron fist. But we're not diving in with our general heroes, as in the last chapter we met our female ranger, Monica, and this is the second part to her story. Monica was a maid, but after she found out that her boss, a jellyfish-like monster disguised as a human who ran a beauty product line, used children to enhance her beauty products, became a ranger to stop and protect the children. So, last we left Monica, she dived from the middle section of District 32, the biggest city on the planet, and ended up on the bottom level where everyone's either homeless or, well, alone. So, let's see how Monica's story continues with Power Rangers Magnificent Megaforce, Chapter 8, Monica and the Blue Mystic Force Ranger Key. Monica awoke to the sound of children playing. She climbed up to her feet and walked out of the tent. She found the children running around. Some of the other folks stood and watched her. She kept checking her pocket for the morphine key. She knelt down by a bucket of water to scoop some up with her hand, and she sipped on some. She stood there and thought about the apartment she used to have. It was small, but it was livable. The small amount of money she used to make. She stood there feeling a bit out of sorts, but not at all afraid. She watched over the children playing and felt some sort of certainty within herself. She knew that she had to protect these kids. Suddenly, a group of X-Borgs marched through the street, and everyone cleared the path. All the kids hid in the tents. Monica stepped up and faced the X-Borgs, as everyone else either scurried to one side, hid by the wall, or hid in their own tents.
Got a problem?
Monica barked. The X-Borgs all looked at her and slowly aimed their weapon.
Think about this for a second,
Monica told them. One of them took their shot and a blast of energy fired directly at Monica. She rolled forward, dodging the attack. She then jumped up, swung her foot, kicking the weapon away. Monica demanded, "Oh, please. They aren't here for these half-lives nitwits. They're here for you. As am I," a voice screeched, and the X-Borgs made a way for the green and purple jellyfish monster.
It's you?
Monica blurted. "Yes. My boss didn't want a maid running around as a Power Ranger. So give me your key, maid," Jacinda ordered.
First off, I have a name. It's Monica. And second of all, hell no!
Monica replied. She pulled out her morpher and key. She flipped the morpher open and slotted the Ranger key inside.
Legendary Ranger mode!
Monica called out, and then in a flash of yellow she was morphed into the yellow Super Megaforce Ranger. "Don't make me hurt you, maid," Jacinda barked. The Yellow Ranger ran at Jacinda, who jumped up and shot green energy blasts from her big purple eyes. The Yellow Ranger hopped to one side, dodging the attack. She then jumped up into the air and kicked the monster in the chest. Jacinda swiped her hand and struck the Yellow Ranger in the chest, sending the Yellow Ranger flying back, crashing on the ground. Two of the kids ran out of the tent and tried to pull the Yellow Ranger back up to her feet.
Kids, get back!
The Yellow Ranger snapped, but the children did not want to move. They both stayed knelt down by the fallen Ranger. She slowly climbed to her feet and pushed the children behind her. "Do you see yourself? Look around you. These people have nothing. They live in the dirt. They spend their days coddled together, wasting their sad, useless lives. And look at what you're doing. You've brought war upon them," Jacinda barked.
Maybe you're right, but I won't stop fighting,
the Yellow Ranger called out. She then summoned her Super Mega Blaster and took fire on Jacinda. The monster waved her hand and deflecting the attacks. The shots flew up and hit the huge walls that surrounded the lower half of the city. Pieces of debris fell down and crashed around the civilians. People screamed out in fear as they started running in different directions, trying to dodge the debris. The yellow Super Megaforce Ranger pushed the kids out of the way. She aimed her blast up in the air and shot chunks to the wall that were falling down, turning them into nothing but dust. "See? All you're doing is bringing torment to these common folk," Jacinda barked.
Well, I ain't giving up,
the Yellow Ranger barked back. Then she ran forward, jumped up and kicked Jacinda, but she was caught by the foot. Then Jalcinda threw the ranger back and she crashed onto the floor and climbed to her feet. The Yellow Ranger summoned her Super Mega Saber, and then she ran at the monster and slashed down as she threw her elbow at her, then kicked her, swung her saber up and slashed Jalcinda again, but Jalcinda blocked all of the attacks. Then Jalcinda's hand became small tentacles once again and was thrashed at the Yellow Ranger's chest. She then swung the tentacles over and over again, striking the Yellow Ranger. Sparks flew off her suit as she dropped to one knee. "Give up already," Jalcinda screamed.
Never!
The Yellow Ranger growled. Then the Yellow Ranger gripped both her weapons, jumped up, and spun around with her sword out, slicing Jalcinda's tentacles in a tornado fashion. Jalcinda jumped back. Then the Yellow Ranger ran at Jalcinda and swung her saber. Jalcinda grabbed the Ranger's wrist and kicked her in the stomach, making her drop the saber. Then the Yellow Ranger got right up close and aimed her blaster and pulled the trigger. But in one fell swoop, Jalcinda pushed the blaster away, jabbing her palm into the Ranger's chest, the blast firing from the blaster, and it hit a tent. The tent exploded. The Yellow Ranger dropped to her knees, completely in shock, staring at the burning tent, not knowing if anyone was inside. "Come with us, and stop this foolishness. No one else has to get hurt," Jalcinda sneered.
Never. I can keep these people safe. I can still keep my distance from you.
The Yellow Ranger snapped. She then looked around the damage that she had caused, all around her. The place was now broken, with pieces of debris all over the place, and the tent on fire. Then jumped up high and spun around up in the air and landed on top of the wall that surrounded the place. "Get back down here," Jalcinda called out.
No. I will return and destroy this city, and when I do, I'll have a team and more power. Power to stop you. Mark my words.
The Yellow Ranger snapped. Then she leaned back and fell off the wall, leaving her city and her home behind. 3 days later, Monica walked through the forest. She had managed to find herself a new change of clothes from some campers who helped her out, now wearing a pair of trousers and a black vest. She kept some stuff she managed to collect, food and some useful items. She walked through the forest. It was colder than the city. It was colder than what she was used to. There was leaves all over the floor and a gentle blanket of fog that surrounded her. She hopped over a small tree that had fallen. As she landed, she saw a group of X-Borgs dragging a mermaid-looking creature across the ground. Its tail was wriggling and she was crying out as the X-Borgs dragged her across the mud. Monica then dropped her bag, ran into action. She jumped into the group, kicked one of the X-Borgs, and flipped her morpher and slotted the key. As she turned it, she rolled to one side and morphed into the yellow Super Megaforce Ranger. She then summoned her saber and slashed the X-Borgs down as she jumped up and kicked one in the head. And then she jumped up and kicked one in the chest twice. As she landed, she rolled forward with her saber and she took down the last two X-Borgs. Then she walked up to the mermaid creature, who was laying there on the ground and looking at the Ranger with fear.
Hey, it's okay. Don't worry.
The Yellow Ranger said to her, and she demorphed.
You're from the magic realm, aren't you?
Monica asked. The creature nodded and then started to crawl away. Monica rolled her eyes and scooped up the mermaid and carried her and followed the sound of rushing water and found a big pond being filled by a nice little stream. She placed the mermaid in the pond and the young female fish hybrid cheered and splashed. "Doda dihifotada," the mermaid said in her native tongue.
I'm sorry, what?
Monica asked, confused. Then the mermaid dove underwater. Monica knelt down and looked down into the water, all confused. The mermaid had disappeared within the water's depths. Then suddenly the mermaid popped up again and handed Monica something. Monica took it from her and she gazed at the item. It was the blue Mystic Force Ranger key.
This is for me?
Monica asked. The mermaid started speaking again, but some commotion behind them startled them both. Monica turned back to the mermaid.
Stay in the water. I'll divert them. When it's safe, head home, okay?
Monica demanded. Then Monica ran off, leaving the mermaid to hide in the pond. Monica ran up and hid behind a rock, peering over to the X-Borgs, who was started to advance. She then ran up a slant which led up to the side of a cliff. Monica could see the group of X-Borgs down below. She morphed into the Yellow Ranger once again, and with her saber stabbed the cliff and pulled her sword out in one fell swoop, making the cliff break and causing a rock slide. All the X-Borgs looked up and escaped the oncoming force of nature. Then they started climbing up the cliff, trying to figure out what caused the rock slide in the first place. The yellow Super Megaforce Ranger ran away, leaving the X-Borgs away from the mermaid. Monica walked on. It had been 4 days since she caused the landslide and saved the mermaid. She had escaped the X-Borgs and carried on wandering. She had done okay surviving on her own. Food was the hardest part. Sleeping in the dirt had become common knowledge of survival to her now. Monica walked past a sign which read District 30.
I wonder if I could find some food.
Monica muttered to herself. She then walked into the district and suddenly a bunch of X-Borgs barged past her and were all running deeper into the district. She then realised that they weren't interested in her.
It's me or someone else,
Monica said to herself. She then ran and dived forward, kicking one of the X-Borgs into another, and then stood there in front of them. She pulled out her morpher and slotted in her Ranger key. She turned the key and morphed into the blue Mystic Force Ranger.
Mystic Force Blue!
She called out. She then dived into the group. She flipped her cape around and started kicking an X-Borg. She blocked an attack before jumping up, and she pulled out her Magi staff and aimed it at the X-Borgs, blasting a blast of water which erupted from the Magi wand and hit the X-Borgs dead on. She then spun around and kicked one in the face as she glided back. She held up her wand and she became super fast, blurred for the X-Borg, striking each one of them as they dropped to the floor. She stopped and demorphed.
New Ranger form is so dope!
Monica smiled to herself. She then looked down the pathway that the X-Borgs would have gone down and figured that the group of X-Borgs were after something or someone. She grabbed her bag and ran deeper into the district. The sounds of fighting and explosions could be heard in the background. She ran deeper into the fold. Smoke had started filling the air. She looked around and saw people either hiding or running in the opposite direction. She then saw 2 boys stood there. A monster causing mayhem could be seen further in the distance. She stopped and examined the 2 boys. One of the boys had tribal tattoos running up his neck and a nice silver ring on his middle finger. The other was holding 2 different Ranger keys. One being the red Mighty Morphin key, the other being the yellow Mighty Morphin key. Monica knew that the yellow Ranger of the Mighty Morphin team was a girl. They obviously needed her, so she walked up to the duo. "Hey, I'm just saying, why give me a female key when I can't use it?" the one with the keys said.
I think that might be me.
Monica piped up. Both the boys turned around, stood there and gazed at her, all confused. And there you have it, guys. Chapter 8, with Monica's story continuing. Now, I do plan on explaining what happened during the 4 and 3 different section days, but those stories will be revealed later down the line. Now, of course, since we're here, I have to give a big shout out to Jordan, our voice actress for Monica. She's actually one of my big voice actresses and she does a lot of work on this channel, so please give her a round of applause and of course go follow her on TikTok. Now, let's talk about our partners here. We have Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger, who owns the Nerds Through Comics podcast, where he adapts comic books into audio dramas, so you don't have to read the comic books but can still hear an awesome badass storyline, very well edited as well, might I add. He also has his main original story, Power Rangers Royal Britannia, and he also hosts a lot of my own stories on his podcast, so you should go check him out. We also have my parabatai, Willie, who of course hosts Storytime with Cosplay 267, Power Rangers Verse 19, Sailor Moon E podcast, and of course the new YouTube channel Cosplay Family 637 Nostalgia Storytime, with lots of different storylines from Shadowhunters to lots of different animes, including Sailor Moon obviously, different Power Rangers and Kamen Rider stories, and he's just started a He-Man story on the YouTube channel. We are in association with Zero to Hero, a Power Ranger themed podcast where Billy and Jim, the Balkans Club Podcasting, host the podcast every Friday and talk about not just Power Rangers, lots of different fandoms. They interview people and it's an absolute blast. I like listening to them whilst I'm editing this story, for an example, so it's good to go check them out as well. That being said, go check out our brother channel, Tiger Tales, The Lost Stories, where you'll find different stories in the first person perspective and a big different take on the word fanfiction. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and that being said, I shall see you guys really soon.